Chapter 137, Outside Opinions, Hanyu's POV. Antony looked miserable as he let Julia hoist him to his feet. Thad had joined them at some point and hovered there with his hands fluttering slightly. Hanyu had had to give up his spot at Antony's feet, and now he hovered as well, feeling useless as he saw his master's neutral mask slip into place. "Can I come too?" he asked, hating to let Antony suffer like that without at least offering his support. However, the god shook his head. "No, it might not be safe. You can stay with Asao." "Yes." Lord Julia hooked an arm around Antony's torso to support him, and Hanyu envied her. It had felt so good to hold his master close on the way over. "You should stay here, and... Thaddy?" Thad nodded. "Yes, I'll come too, if you don't mind, Asao?" "Of course not, my lord." Asao bent low over the table. "My lord should come and go as he pleases." The Pasel of Gods spoke quietly to Cloelia outside the room, then she called farewell as they made their way down the hall. She stayed on her side of the door, however, and Hanyu and Asao were alone. It had been a long time since they'd spoken without various gods in the room. Hanyu felt shyer than he'd expected, not quite able to meet his friend's one remaining eye. To cover for the strange reluctance, he peered curiously at the new patch. "It's just fabric," Asao grumbled at last, when Hanyu's gawking had gone on too long. "It won't change, no matter how long you look at it." "Sorry," Hanyu squeaked. "Just, does it hurt?" Asao looked down at the table. "Sort of. Lord Julia is still giving me drops for the pain, but I get headaches sometimes from trying too hard to focus on things. Everything looks so different. I'm not used to it yet." "It was all so horrible. Why couldn't the god's blood Lord Julia had given Asao restore him entirely, like it did them? Why couldn't his eye grow back and his scars vanish and everything go back to the way it had been? Why would there never, never be a chance for Hanyu to feel less guilty?" "I'm so sorry," he whispered. He had said that so many times the last few days, to Asao and Antony both. It never stopped feeling completely inadequate. Asao let out a frustrated huff. "It wasn't because of you, Hanyu. Lord Marcus was angry with me, and he was going to hurt me no matter where you were or what you did. I chose to attack him. Me! That was my decision. Not everything is about you." "Oh." Chastened, Hanyu stared down at the floor. "I didn't mean to. I'm sorry." "It's fine!" Asao exhaled. "Sorry. I shouldn't have snapped. Just please stop apologizing to me. There's nothing to apologize for." "All right." They lapsed into an uncomfortable silence. Hanyu racked his mind for something to say and found it emptier than ever. "Since when do I worry about what to say to Asao?" "Since we got on the ship, of course. I just don't understand. I thought we were as close as two people could possibly be. I thought we could read each other's faces and hearts as easily as a book. I thought nothing could ever come between us. How did this happen? He feels like a stranger, but he's the one I whispered secrets with. We compared our pubic hair when it started coming in, for goodness sake. We told each other our dreams every morning. How can I feel like I don't know him at all?" "Well, so things have changed. So what? I just need to try to understand and get comfortable with the changes, starting with his eye." "You said the patch is just fabric?" Hanyu ventured at last. Asao nodded, looking puzzled. "Yes." "Maybe you could embroider it." "I could... what?" "I'll bet the gods have all kinds of colored threads." Hanyu was warming to his topic, visions of beautiful eye patches beginning to fill his mind. "They probably even have real gold and silver thread. It would look so good against the black. And Thad and Cloelia have all those beads they used for my necklace. They would probably share." "Hanyu." Asao's voice broke in, thick and choked. Oh no, did I make him cry? I'm not going to sew beads on my eye patch. Asao broke into helpless gales of laughter. Hanyu joined in, overcome with joy and relief. It had been so long since he made his friend laugh. Why not? He demanded when his giggles had subsided a little. You always embroidered the prettiest flowers. If he had to wear an eye patch, Hanyu would want it to be covered with beautiful embroidery and beads and jewels. He would have eye patches in every color of the rainbow, so he could match them to his outfits. It could be a whole new accessory. Imagine if I embroidered an eye, Asao wheezed. If I just embroidered the crudest, most absurd-looking eye on the patch and then acted confused if anyone mentioned my missing eye. What are you talking about? I have both eyes right here. I'm looking right at you. It would be hilarious. Hanyu fell into another fit of giggles. Like the time Jen didn't wear his small clothes. Asao descended into more laughter at the memory. Jen had gone through a phase where he had hated to wear small clothes, claiming that they were too hot and confining, and he'd managed to get away with foregoing them for several weeks. Then, when he was finally caught, he'd mustered all the confused, wide-eyed innocence he could and told the priest, "But, sir, I thought we were supposed to be ready for our masters at any time." The brazen trick had actually worked, if Hanyu remembered correctly. "Or you could embroider fish," he persisted when he caught his breath. "Thad would probably love that. He'd get you a different eye patch for every day of the year, just so you can embroider hundreds of kinds of fish on them." Asao's face fell flat, his laughter drying up. "Well, I'm not going to belong to Lord Thaddeus, so that hardly matters." Hanyu had suspected that Asao wanted to be Thad's. He'd been almost certain. Now, though, his heart leapt. It was good to be completely sure. "You wish you were going to be his, don't you?" he pressed, hoping for even more confirmation. "I wish to serve," Asao said promptly. The way he avoided agreeing was as good as an outright agreement, and Hanyu was grateful that his friend was staring at the table and couldn't see him beaming. "It would have been a great honor to serve Lord Thaddeus, but it's also an honor to serve Lord Antony. I'm so very relieved that he still wants me. Thank you." "What?" Hanyu squinted at him, confused. "I didn't do anything." "You intervened for me," replied Asao. "Remember, when Lord Julia told us what she'd done, you begged our master to keep me." He kept his gaze down and his voice flat, as though the memory didn't make him happy. For his part, Hanyu had honestly forgotten that had happened until now. "Oh, yes." He waved a hand dismissively. "That didn't matter. Antony was already going to let you stay. He really cares about you, Asao." "He cares about you," Asao whispered hotly, gaze still averted. "It's not that," argued Hanyu. "He's so kind, Asao. A few days ago, he kissed me to show me my place, and when I begged not to have that kind of punishment again, he promised he wouldn't. And he was so kind and gentle with me today. He said he wanted to be friends, that he wanted to make me happy. He's just like that. He'd never throw you away." Asao's eye had gone wide, and he'd lifted his gaze from the table to stare at Hanyu. "Wait, Lord Antony punished you with kissing?" Hanyu flushed at the memory. Yes. I was getting above myself. That's why I went to the island. I was angry that my lord wasn't paying attention to me, and... Oh, Asao, I wanted him to love me." Asao gasped. "Hanyu!" "I know," Hanyu moaned, flushing. "How could you? That's awful!" Asao's voice was tight with shock. "That's blasphemy! It might be worse than blasphemy! That's so dangerous, Hanyu! What would happen to you if he found out?" Hanyu tried to force back tears. He did. That's why he kissed me, to show me how ridiculous I was being. Something like that wouldn't just be punished with some mockery, argued Esau. Did he say that was why he was punishing you? Well, no. Did he say the kiss was a punishment at all? Esau pressed. Hanyu forced his mind back to that horrible moment, little as he wanted to. Not exactly. He didn't really get the chance. Because you started crying and begging, Esau supplied, before Hanyu could say because he fainted. His voice was tight with horror, maybe even fear. Of course you did. Oh, Hanyu! What? Hanyu demanded, fear pooling thick and cold in his gut. What did I do wrong? Esau groaned. Think, Hanyu! Our master ended things with Lord Marcus, and you're his favorite attendant. Hanyu's first instinct was to argue that he wasn't Antony's favorite, but then he remembered the god's arms around him, the way he'd said he would do anything to make him happy. He didn't mean that, of course. He couldn't. But either way, it was hard to deny that somehow his master did care about him. Hanyu might not understand why, but he was clearly greatly favored. But what did that have to do with his god's separation from Marcus? He blinked helplessly at Esau, feeling as stupid as ever. Our Lord wanted to use you, Esau said fiercely. He was going to give you the honor of servicing him in bed, and you asked him to stop. Hanyu couldn't help laughing. The idea was so absurd. If Esau had been there to see the state their master had been in, that would have kept his imagination from running away with him like this. That was days ago, he giggled. Antony didn't even have his tongue back. He could barely move. He fainted right after kissing me. Esau's grim expression didn't waver. He probably wanted to introduce you to the idea gently. You're right that our master is incredibly kind. He probably didn't want you to be surprised when the time came. But I'm in disgrace, Hanyu protested. His heart rate had intensified, and his pulse was beginning to produce a roaring sound in his ears. I haven't even had my punishment for disobeying yet. There's no way Antony would honor me like that right now. Esau's face darkened, and he stared down at the abandoned cards on the table. Sexual service isn't just an honor, Hanyu. It's service. It's about giving the gods pleasure. They can take their pleasure from an attendant, even if he's in disgrace. Why should they deny themselves just because their slave isn't worthy? But... Hanyu fell silent. Why was he arguing? He ought to be thrilled at the very idea. This was all he'd ever wanted, wasn't it? From the moment he'd first laid eyes on Antony, he'd longed for his master to use him. He'd fallen asleep fantasizing, and when he dreamed of Antony touching him, Antony inside him, he always woke up so hard that it hurt. If Antony used him, it would prove that he could do something for his beloved master. It would be a chance to serve as he never had before. It would prove all the priests and his cadre mates and Marcus and everybody wrong. It would mean that Hanyu was special and beautiful and desirable enough to tempt a god who never used his slaves that way, not even gorgeous edgy. But it wouldn't mean that at all, would it? If Antony took him now, it wouldn't mean anything except that the god had lost his love and needed a convenient body to relieve himself with. That's enough. That's more than enough. If he had stripped me and taken me that first night, I would have been delighted and grateful, like I should. I wouldn't have cared about his reasons. Why do I care now? I didn't learn my lesson after all. I don't want to just be the obedient body Antony uses because his lover is gone. It's more than I deserve, but I don't want it. I want my master to want me. You have to fix this! Asao's eyes were wide, and the terror in his voice brought Hanyu back to himself. Maybe it's not too late. Asao was right. This was no time for Hanyu to ruminate on his own pointless emotions. Who cared what he felt or wanted? If Asao was right, and he usually was, then there was no time to lose. Hanyu had behaved unforgivably. He had made Antony think he didn't want him, when the truth was that, if anything, he wanted him too much, in too many unattainable ways. He thinks of me as a friend, and he said himself that the gods often take pleasure with their friends. If I think of it like that, will it help? That idea was almost bearable. He could picture Antony with Felix or Lord Julia, chatting easily and laughing at any awkwardness or mishaps that arose in their lovemaking. If he imagined himself being treated like that, perhaps... It was impossible. Whenever Hanyu tried to imagine himself being used, his mind flew unstoppably back to his training. It had begun in earnest 2 years ago, when he was 19 and his cadre had been moved to the gods' nocturnal schedule. The priests recruited a mixture of people as trainers, so the offerings would be prepared to service any god who claimed them. For Hanyu's first time, he had been handed off to a trainer with a vulva, but the man had been wearing a chili glass phallus. This is closer to how a god will feel, the trainer had explained when Hanyu knelt, trembling, just inside the doorway. Now, come here. Rough hands, sore throat, aching thighs, lowering myself down too slowly, a switch biting my sides, apologizing and expressing gratitude through the tears. Why in the world would I convince myself that I want to be desired? I don't even know what that would feel like. I only know how to be a toy. If that's what my master wants from me now, good. It's better to stick to what I know. Asao? Hanyu forced his friend's name out through lips that had suddenly turned tense and quivery. His body felt 1,000,000 miles away. Please help me. Tell me what to do to fix this. It'll be all right, Asao soothed, though the nerves in his voice made Hanyu wonder how much he really believed that. I'll tell you how to offer yourself, and our Lord will forgive you. He likes you, Hanyu. I care about you very much, Hanyu. You said you were bad, but I like everything about you that you listed. You're important to me. It was just that morning that Antony had said all that to him. Hanyu tried to take some hope from the words, from the memory of his master's careful fingers in his hair. Maybe after he's finished using me, he'll still fix my hair sometimes. Hanyu could almost persuade himself that that might be enough.